Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Hype Train. It is I, the fanatical Makai Vega, coming to you today with some Final Fantasy 16. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've thought the same thing myself. Makai Vega, you've been gone for like, how the freak long? And you're just gonna walk back up into my life like you never left? Well, there's a pretty reasonable explanation for all that. I don't know, some ridiculous people out there just decided that, they had to replace my studio room with, a room for their kids and all that good stuff, the little devils. And so then I got kicked out of the room and I was like, well, I guess I can't do the Hype Train anymore. But then the other day I was randomly just looking through old comments and stuff like that. And then I saw this wonderful gem of a comment right here. And I was like, hey, I get that reference. And now I'm here. As you can see now, we're just sort of in my room. Welcome to my room. Pretty cool. See the lion? I call him Leo, because lions, yeah. Hey, and don't worry. Those of you who have never seen this beautiful face before, I know what you're thinking too. On a scale of give a dang to don't give a dang, I don't give a dang. So regardless, let's get to it with some Final Fantasy 16. Hype Train, baby. Woot, woot. So as many of you may know, during the PS5 showcase a little bit last year, they dropped a shiny new cinematic trailer for the newest installment in the Final Fantasy series. Now, my dear heroes and heroines, Final Fantasy has come a very long way since the traditional turn-based action RPG of the old days. And by the look of the trailer, the first thing I notice is that Final Fantasy is entering sort of a literal fantasy genre, taking place back in what seems like a middle-aged sort of era with magic and dragons and all that good stuff. First thing to note, the game is being worked on by the team that's responsible for the Final Fantasy 14 online game, which I have yet to play, but I've only heard good things.
Makai Vega's a fake Final Fantasy fan.
Also, the game has been under development for at least 4 years at this point. And Final Fantasy XIV's lead director, Naoki, aka Yoshi P. Yoshida, has been assigned the executive producer of the game. Take a peek at something the great and fabulous Yoshi P. has said. I'd like to see a Final Fantasy that is straightforward fantasy. One that doesn't have much machinery and no mecha in it. They sort of went from like steampunky with Final Fantasy VII and then the whole industrial thing in Final Fantasy 15. Now we're back in the regular age of swords and chocobo metal. Yeah. If there's one thing I want in this game, if there's one thing that I could have, it would be chocobo metal. I hit myself in the face with my hair. It has been touted that it has been heavily inspired by the Dark Souls franchise. And for those of you who paid super attention to the trailer, you could see the aesthetic that they were going for. A lot of it looks darker and grittier, and there looks to be a new focus on boss battles, which I love. That's something that I was surely missing within Final Fantasy 15. After Final Fantasy 15, I was beyond hyped for it, seeing all the trailers and everything that had come to it. But when I had finished it, I felt a sad sense of disappointment. Everything that I was hyped for actually just turned out to be a different game. And I'm a big story guy, so throughout the development of 15 or 13 verses or whatever, I was paying close attention, but then imagine my disappointment when this, she's cool, she's gonna fight, oh my god, Noctis ain't a cool guy, he's got a dark past, he's morally gray, ain't he? Turn to that.
If you want to take a picture with her so bad, then why don't you ask her?
Why you got so much angst for? For me personally, Final Fantasy has been missing that sort of dynamic, morally gray, complicated storyline that can make their magic world so much better than it already is.
You still haven't played Final Fantasy 14? It's got that.
Ignore that guy. But seeing everything that 13 Versus was going for, not only did the story not really live up to expectations for me, the world didn't really either. A lot of it sort of felt like vast wasteland, and despite them having all these big, beautiful cities and landscapes, there was nothing to do in them. But what Final Fantasy 15 did have that always kept me coming back was some nice fluid gameplay. The teleport system I loved, the ally system in that, it was great when it worked. When it didn't really bother me too much. And anyone who's ever played a game with me knows that I'm a fast-paced player. So whenever I get a teleport ability, I'm just like... Obviously, Final Fantasy XV's gameplay got merged with the gameplay of Final Fantasy VII, which created the remake, which I enjoyed 20 times more than 15. So everything about it was just unique and all in. So I'm looking forward to the great thing from Final Fantasy XVI, because obviously when you get older, you get better. There's obviously no such thing as a bad sequel, right? Anywho, the gameplay looks flush with a new magic system that seems inspired by the game's own story and the icons and the eidolons and all that good stuff that we've come to love Final Fantasy IV. But speaking of story, in the world of Valisthea, the land is studded with these things called mother crystals. They are kind of like giant crystal obelisks that tower over each of the 6 countries that occupy this game. And it blesses the people of each respective kingdom with a substance called aether. Aether or ether? I guess it would be ether or. Essentially, these people sort of worship these crystals in sort of like a mother tree sort of situation, as it is the bringer of all their life and necessity. Also, the world is ravaged by giant creatures known as icons, which you may recognize as typical summons or just boss battles from the other games. And most notably, you might remember Shiva. Oh, Shiva baby, blow me away. It seems these icons sort of live within a single person, and that person is revered as their dominant, because they can call upon these giant extravagant entities. Many people see them as royalty, powerful soldiers, or just people that all around should not be futzed with. One particular Iron Nation hates the crap out of them and would rather just kill them, before they're birthed. Yeah, I know who the not cool guys are, right? Now, what comes interesting to me is that in the issue of the main character's little brother Joshua, because he's been selected by the icon Phoenix, he has been chosen to be the Archbishop of Rosaria by proxy. For me, that has a variety of different theories and political turmoil that can entail. Like, what happens if it doesn't choose someone of your specific family? Does the Archbishop just get passed to some rando? What if it gets born into a commoner that doesn't know anything? And when an icon chooses a new person, what happens to the old one? Do they just wither away and die, or do they just go from level 100 to level 5? How are these people chosen? What makes them eligible? Is it their royal blood? Is it something to do with bloodlines? Or is it just for funsies? This kid's cool. I'm gonna jump in him and live with him for like 50 years until he dies a horrible, tragic death because I'm inside of him. Because of the curse that I've placed upon them. I'm just spitballing here, but I'm just saying the concept is kind of interesting. So speaking of, the main story seems to take place around a kid named Clive Rosefield, firstborn son of the Archduke of Rosaria. For some reason, he was counting on becoming the dominant for Phoenix, but somewhere along the way, Phoenix said no and chose his little brother instead. So after that, he decided to put his training to the sword and became the very best swordsman in all the land, and eventually won a tournament to become the first Shield of Rosaria. And once he earned that title, he became basically the sole protector of his younger brother, who found himself the most important person in Rosaria due to his being chosen by
Phoenix.
Now, right now, nothing is set in stone, but all we know is that some sort of tragedy befell Joshua because of Ifrit. And later in life, Clive is on a road of seeking revenge for whatever happened between him and his brother and that giant beast of a thing. Phoenix. God dang, have I been saying Ifrit this whole time? Phoenix. His little brother is his icon is Phoenix, not Ifrit. Ifrit is the bad one. He's the dark icon. Ifrit comes and messes with Phoenix, and that's what happened. Edit that.
Phoenix.
Anyway, the trailer seems to cut to a later point in Clive's life where he seemed to have joined some band of soldiers going to war to destroy the dominant of Sheba. It shows some nice chocobo warfare and maybe a little blood, and also some big Colossus icon battles. But if you are ever so keen to notice, you would see that Clive also seems to possess some small power of the Phoenix. Certain pieces of his moveset has him going the Sephiroth one-ringed angel sort of thing, except with, fire wings. So that leaves me thinking perhaps there's some sort of situation where his little brother was able to pass on Phoenix's power to him. Perhaps he could do that with others. Perhaps other dominants can do that with other enemies. Perhaps dominants can do those with their most loyal soldiers, and you get some sort of kingslave situation where a group of soldiers has the king's power, or the dominant's power. Regardless, this war that seems to be happening has been brought upon by the introduction of something called the Blight. DK what it is, but it sounds ugly. Like potentially some sort of disease that's causing political turmoil and tensions between all the 6 countries, leading to a giant, massive civil war. Ah, a disease ravishing the world causing a massive civil unrest? No thanks. Regardless, as it looks to me, you as the protagonist will have plenty of interactions with other icons and other dominants as you seek this path of revenge that you're on. But the entire story and its theme seems to be focused around the battle between Ifrit and Phoenix. As you can see, Final Fantasy XVI's logo seems to be depicting the battle right on its title. And if you remember from the last game, the logo seemed to be Lunafreya as she lay sleeping on Noctis's arm, which kind of served the purpose of the central theme of the narrative. So by that logic, it could possibly mean that the central theme of this game will be something along the lines of loss and revenge and fighting fire with fire, which will eventually lead to the detriment of mankind. Getting deep. But anywho, that's about all I got for the moment. As the year progresses, they'll surely drop more news, more trailers, maybe perhaps even a more rendered trailer than the one we got last time. And we could find out so much more about this game that I am so looking forward to. I, however, will wait to cast my final judgments. As you remember the thing with Final Fantasy 13 Versus, things can change a lot. So it gets no hype score yet, but just for old time's sake, Final Fantasy 16 gets a pretty cool for me. As far as a release date, there isn't anything that they've said to us so far. I feel like the earliest we can go for is early 2022, and that's being hopeful. But I don't know, maybe we'll get a surprise. But we've gotten too little information for me to think that it's anywhere close to being done. And it's also a PlayStation exclusive. What? Xbox fans, we coming for you. I got both, actually. All 3 if you count the Switch. But anyway, next time on the Hype Train.
But whatever comes, I will be ready.
Horizon Forbidden West. Well, that'll do it for me. I don't really remember how my outro went, so I hope you all had a wonderful year last year. I know you didn't, but still, condolences. So bye. Yeah, see ya. Hype train, baby. Woot woot.